written by Pablo Chacoón In an alphabetic writing system, a silent letter is a letter that, in a particular word, does not correspond to any sound in the word's pronunciation. Phonetic transcriptions that better depict pronunciation and which note changes due to grammar and proximity of other words require a symbol to show that the letter is mute. Handwritten notes use a circle with a line through it and the sound is called zero. It resembles the symbol for the empty set, but must not be confused with the Danish and Norwegian letter A. In printed or computer's graphic presentation, using the IPA system, the symbol A is used. Common, for all languages listed, one of the speaking dictionaries offered on the Internet can be used. English, one of the noted difficulties of English spelling is a high number of silent letters. Edward Carney distinguishes different kinds of silent letters, which present differing degrees of difficulty to readers. Auxiliary letters which, with another letter, constitute digraphs, that is two letters combine which represent a single phoneme. These may further be categorized as eccentric digraphs, where the sound of the digraph is different from that of either of his constituent letters. These are rarely considered silent. Examples, where the phoneme has no standard single-letter representation, as with consonants ng copyright for as in sing, I copyright for as in thin or as in then, diphthongs ioi copyright in out or ioi copyright in point. These are the default spellings for the relevant sounds and present no special difficulty for readers or writers. Where standard single-letter representation uses another letter, as with IA copyright in enough or IFA copyright in physical instead of IFA copyright. These may be considered irregular for writers, but less difficult for readers. Endocentric digraphs, where the sound of the digraph is the same as that of one of its constituent letters. These include most double consonants, as IBBAY copyright in clubbed. Though not geminate consonants, as I say copyright in misspell. Doubling due to suffixation or inflection is regular. Otherwise, it may present difficulty to writers, but not to readers. The discontiguous digraphs, whose second element is magic E, for example IAO copyright in rate, IIO copyright in fine. This is the regular way to represent long vowels in the last syllable of a morpheme. Others, such as ICKAY copyright, IQA copyright as in guard, vogue. IA copyright as in bread, heavy, etc. These may be difficult for writers and sometimes also for readers. Dummy letters with no relation to neighboring letters and no correspondence in pronunciation. Some are inert letters, which are sounded in a cognate word, for example INA copyright in dam. IGA copyright in phlegm. IR copyright in practically. If the cognate is obvious, it may aid writers in spelling, but mislead readers in pronunciation. The rest are empty letters, which never have a sound, for example IWA copyright in answer, IHA copyright in Sarah, I say copyright in island, IBay copyright in subtle, the ITE copyright in ballet. These may present the greatest difficulty to writers and often to readers, as well. The distinction between endocentric digraphs and empty letters is somewhat arbitrary. For example, in such words as little and bottle, one might view ILA copyright as an endocentric digraph or view IO copyright as an empty letter. Similarly, with IBUA copyright or IWA copyright in buy and build. Not all silent letters are completely redundant. Silent letters can distinguish between homophones, for example an N. BB. Lent. This is an aid to readers, already familiar with both words. Silent letters may give an insight into the meaning or origin of a word. For example vineyard suggests vines more than the phonetic vineyard would. Silent letters may help to put weight on a certain syllable, telling the reader to put more stress on the syllable. The final IFO copyright in giraffe gives a clue to the second syllable stress, where giraffe might suggest initial stress. Silent letters arise in several ways, sound changes occurring without a spelling change. The digraph IA copyright was pronounced X in Middle English in such words as light. Sound distinctions from foreign languages may be lost, as with the distinction between smooth rho and roughly aspirated rho in ancient Greek, represented by IRE copyright and IRE copyright in Latin, but merged to the same, R, in English. Similarly, with IFA copyright/IFA copyright. The latter from Greek phi. Clusters of consonants may be simplified, producing silent letters. For example, silent ITHE copyright in asthma, silent ITE copyright in Christmas. Similarly, with alien clusters, such as Greek initial IFSE copyright in psychology and IMNI copyright in mnemonic, and the much rarer clusters in chthonic and phthalate. Compound words are often simplified in pronunciation, while their spelling remains the same. For example, cupboard and breakfast were once pronounced as written, but were then simplified over time. The words forehead and waistcoat have largely reverted to their spelling pronunciations, but were once pronounced forehead and waistcoat, respectively. Occasionally, spurious letters are consciously inserted in spelling to reflect etymology. The IBE copyright in det and out was inserted to match Latin cognates like debit and dubitable. A silent ISE copyright was inserted in ul and then extended to the unrelated word island. The IPE copyright in ptarmigan was apparently suggested by Greek words such as pteron. Since accent and pronunciation differ, letters may be silent for some speakers, but not others. In non-rhotic accents, IRE copyright is silent in such words as hard, feathered. In H-dropping accents, IHE copyright is silent. A speaker may or may not pronounce ITE copyright in often, the first IK copyright in Antarctic, IDE copyright in sandwich, etc. Other Germanic languages. Danish equals, the Danish language has two different letters which can be silent. The letter IHE copyright is silent in most dialects if followed by IVE copyright, as in HVAD, HVEM, HVOR. The letter IDE copyright is usually silent if preceded by a consonant, as in Enmand, blind, Jordan. Many words ending in IDE copyright are pronounced with a star D, but it's still considered a silent letter. Faroese equals, in the Faroese language there are two silent letters. The letter EDI degree I copyright is not pronounced in almost all instances. It is rendered in orthography for historical reasons. In some cases, however, the letter ED is pronounced, e-pound, as in V degree Ria degree the weather, e very pound she. The letter GEI copyright is usually silent between vowels or when following a vowel before a pause. Use of the silent letter GE in Faroese is the same as for the letter ED. It is written for historical reasons as Faroese orthography was based on normalized spelling of Old Norse and Icelandic language. Both Faroese silent letters ED and GE are replaced by a hiatus glide consonant when followed by another vowel. German equals, in German, silent letters are extremely rare and occur rather in loan words than in German words. IO copyright, the long IA copyright sound is sometimes written IIA copyright, with a silent IO copyright, as in ween or in the verb ending IERNI copyright. In some words of foreign origin, the IO copyright after IA copyright is pronounced, for example ambient, hygiene, client, but is silent in for example curia, papier, rasieren, turnia. In ceremony, the final IO copyright usually is silent, but is always pronounced in its plural form ceremonian. Words ending in IIA copyright can be somewhat tricky to learners, for example, in the words occasie, acti, beguni, family, gerani, hortensi, hosti, immobili, castani, coma paragraph die, curie, lily, linny, orgy, pinny, study, trigger paragraph die. The final IO copyright is pronounced, while it is silent in the words academy, allergy, amnesia, apathy, artillery, chuggy, energy, epidemy, geometry, harmony, history, infantry, irony, company, logi, magi, mani, melody, monotony, nostalgia, orthopocurrency die, party, philanthropy, philately, philosophy, psychiatry, rhapsody, theory, therapy, utopia. IHE copyright, in certain cases, a silent H indicates vowel length, as in still, or a hiatus, as in drian. That H derives from an old and some words, for instance zine, but in other words it has no etymological justification, for instance chen or malon. Romance languages. French silent letters are common in French, including the last letter of most words. Ignoring auxiliary letters that create digraphs, they include almost every possible letter except IR copyright, IJ copyright, IO copyright, IQAY copyright, IVA copyright, and IA copyright. Vowels. Final IO copyright is silent or at least a nearly silent schwa. It allows the preservation of a preceding consonant, often allowing the preservation of a grammatical distinction between masculine and feminine forms in writing, for example, invert and vert. The ITA copyright is pronounced in the latter but not the former. Furthermore, the schwa can prevent an awkward ending of a word ending in a consonant and a liquid. After IVY copyright, IA copyright, or IWA copyright, a final IO copyright is silent. The spelling IAA copyright is pronounced just the same as that for IOA copyright and is entirely an etymological distinction, so in that context, the IO copyright is silent. After IGA copyright or IQAY copyright, IWA copyright is almost always silent. Consonants. In most dialects, the letter IHA copyright is almost always silent, except in the digraphs ICHA copyright and IFA copyright. Numerous doubled consonants exist. French does not distinguish doubled consonants from single consonants in pronunciation as Italian does. A marked distinction exists between a single and doubled ICA copyright. Doubled ICA copyright is always voiceless, S, while an intervocalic single ICA copyright is voiced, Z. The nasal consonants IMA copyright and INA copyright when final or preceding a consonant ordinarily nasalize a preceding vowel but are not themselves pronounced. Initial and intervocalic IMA copyright and INA copyright, even before a final silent IO copyright, are pronounced, AMA, drawn. Most final consonants are silent, usual exceptions to be found with the letters IK copyright, IFA copyright, ILA copyright, and IRA copyright. But even this rule has its exceptions. Final IRA copyright is usually pronounced rather than the expected. Final ILA copyright is silent after IA copyright even in a diphthong. Final ENT is silent as a third-person plural verb ending, though it is pronounced in other cases. Final consonants that might be silent in other contexts may seem to reappear in pronunciation in liaison, ils ont, also euro ei florin they have, as opposed to ils sont, ils say florin they are. Liaison is the retention of a historical sound otherwise lost, and often has grammatical or lexical significance. Italian equals, the letter IHA copyright most often marks IK copyright / IGA copyright as hard, as in spaghetti, where it would otherwise be soft, as in cello, because of a following front vowel. Conversely, a silent IA copyright marks IK copyright / IGA copyright as soft where it would otherwise be hard because of a following back vowel, as in ciao, Perugia. Silent IHA copyright is also used in forms of the verb avere ho, hi and hano to distinguish these from their homophones o, I and ano. The letter IHA copyright is also silent at the beginning of words borrowed from other languages, such as hotel. Spanish equals, despite being rather phonemic, Spanish orthography retains some silent letters. IHA copyright is silent outside of the digraph ICHA copyright and loan words such as HMST or haka s. The digraph IK copyright, used to represent K, before the front vowels IO copyright and IA copyright, has a silent IWA copyright. IQA copyright has the same silent IWA copyright before IO copyright and IA copyright. When the IWA copyright is not silent it must be marked with a tremor, I1/4 I copyright. Before IR copyright and IO copyright, the IWA copyright is not silent. Semitic languages. In Hebrew language, almost all cases of silent letters are silent aleph or euro. Many words that have a silent aleph in Hebrew, have an equivalent word in Arabic language, that is written with a meta lectionis alif or euro o section. A letter that indicates the long vowel or. Examples: the Hebrew word for no is oyo to the first and the Arabic word for no is uoom. The Hebrew word for left side is j degree to the first a and the Arabic word for north is ouuuom. The Hebrew word for head is j to the first k and the Arabic word for head is o plus or minus uox cubed. The explanation for this phenomenon is that the Hebrew language had a sound change of all the meta lectionis aleph letters into silent ones. Due to that sound change, in Hebrew language, there are only two kinds of aleph, the glottal stop and the silent one, while in Arabic language all three kinds still exist. The silent Arabic aleph is marked with a wala sign above it, in order to differentiate it from the other kinds of alephs. An Arabic aleph turns silent if it fulfills three conditions: it must be in the beginning of a word, the word must not be the first one of the sentence, and the word must belong to one of the following groups: verbs that start with the prefix ei, due to their conjugation and derived stem. 10 specific nouns that begin with ei oom cubed u, oom cubed o, oom m/oom mo copyright, oom/oom oo plus or minus o currency per oo plus or minus ox copyright, o shi oom uu/o shi oom uu. Some of these words have a Hebrew word equivalent, and that equivalent had totally lost the beginning aleph. Examples: oom cubed u, meaning a name, sounds like ism if it is in the beginning of the sentence and sm if not. Its Hebrew equivalent is j micron. Oom, meaning a son, sounds like ibn if it is in the beginning of the sentence and bn if not. Its Hebrew equivalent is o micron o1/4 y. The aleph of the word oomu, meaning the sounds like il if it is in the beginning of the sentence and l if not. Besides the aleph of the Arabic word oom, its lam can also get silent. It gets silent if the noun that word is related to starts with a son letter. A son letter is a letter that indicates a consonant that is produced by stopping the air in the front part of the mouth. The Hebrew equivalent to the Arabic word oom had totally lost its l. Uralic languages, the Estonian and Finnish languages use double letters for long vowels and geminate consonants. Turkish, in the Turkish language, ay copyright is often nearly silent. Indic languages, unconventional to Sanskrit and Proto-Indo-European root languages, some Indic languages have silent letters. Among them Tamil and Malayalam have certain distinct styles of keeping few of their letters silent. Tamil Tamil is a classical language phonetically characterized by allophones, approximants, nasals and glottalized sounds. Some words, however, have silent letters in them. The words a registered trademark florin AA, and a registered trademark florin AAA contain the itom or a registered trademark florin, which is not pronounced in modern Tamil. It is explained in the Tokwa Ppiyam that a itom could have the glottalized the sounds it was combined with, though some may argue it sounded more like the Arabic O registered trademark. That being said, modern words like a registered trademark florin AAA use a registered trademark florin and in sequence to represent the sound. Another convention in Middle Tamil is the use of silent vowels to address a mark of respect when beginning proper nouns. The Ramayana was one such text where the word Ramayana in Tamil always began with a registered trademark, as in a registered trademark AAAAAAA, though it was not pronounced. The name a registered trademark AAAAAA was so written as a registered trademark Permil, a registered trademark AAAAAA prefixed with an a registered trademark Permil. Malayalam is a Sanskritized language in which speakers always pronounce all letters. The only known exception for consonants in the language being a tt microa, where a is never pronounced. Inheriting elision, approximants and allophones from Tamil, in Malayalam, except for Sanskrit words, words ending in the vowel a permil become silent at the end and if not compounded with words succeeding them, replace the a permil vowel by the schwa or. However, it is considered disrespectful to change this pronunciation in the simple present verbs, when using imperatives and using what can be termed as imperative active voice in Malayalam, where the second person is respectfully addressed with his or her name instead of a T micron euro or a T unregistered trademark a micro unregistered trademark a micron 1/2. For example, in the sentence, a degree, a 3/4 a micro, a paragraph, a micro, a micron, euro, a micron, 1/4 a micro, a micron. The use of the second personal pronoun is avoided with the name, a degree, a 3/4 a micro, a paragraph, a micron, but this sentence sounds less respectful if the a per mil in a micron, euro, a micron, 1/4 a micro, a micron, which sounds like an order. Notice the at the end of the name Rakus, which is pronounced after being added to the Sanskritic name. See also, schwa deletion in Indo-Aryan languages, explains rules of modern Indo-Aryan languages that delete the schwa sound. Silent E, silent K, three-letter rule, source of some common English silent letters. List of names in English with counterintuitive pronunciations, many with multiple silent letters. Silent English alphabet, composed of words with silent letters. References